Hello everyone, I'm Paolo Obrera. The 2022 national election is history. A new government will soon take over for the next 6 years. As the country witnesses another leadership transition, what comes next? It was arguably an emotionally charged campaign, especially among supporters of candidates with a message that resonated in rallies. Love for country above oneself. But after the cheers, fanfare, and fiery speeches have faded, can Filipinos still exhibit the same passion and spirit for nationalism post-election? In this roundtable discussion, we discuss our hopes for the Philippines and how our civic duty can go beyond the ballot. So with that, welcome to Beyond the Ballot, a mahaba-habang usapan on our civic duty after the elections, brought to you by CNN Philippines in partnership with San Mig Light. Now, let's first welcome our guests. We're starting off, of course, with Attorney Ona Caritos, Executive Director of Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or LENTE. Great to have you.
Hello, Pao.
All right, we've also got the founder of ASEAN Youth Advocates Network, Myros Ponon. Myros.
Magandang araw.
And graduate student of anthropology from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Ina Salas.
Hello.
This is set to be a really, what I hope to be, a lively discussion. Ang dami nating pwedeng pag-usapan. Actually, mahaba-habang usapan ito.
Yes.
It's a great lineup of people, a nice cross-section here. Ikaw, Ina, as somebody who basically studies, people and our behavior, why was it so important for Filipinos in this round of elections to be out there, to really make their voice heard?
I think the past 2 years was quite an experience for everyone. No? It was a different experience for everyone. And syempre kailangan natin magpakilala, no? Ipaalam natin kung ano yung mga gusto natin na pagbabago, ano yung mga gusto natin na changes in the next 6 years.
Agree. I mean, you obviously, Myros, I'm sure you and your contemporaries, siguro pinag-usapan nyo, walang iwanan to. We gotta go out there, we gotta vote. Why was it so important for you as a first-time voter?
Oh yeah, so it's the most direct way of foreseeing of what we really want for the country. And so a lot of my friends, including myself, we were volunteering even before the elections on making sure that the youth vote was there, because so that we had a goal to have a lot of registered or new voters by this year, kasi there is still the stigma na isa lang naman yung boto. So civic participation is best seen through voting, but again, it doesn't end there. Pero it was that step. I always wanted to vote when I was a young boy. Lagi yung iniiwan sa bahay, tapos iniiwan lang kami ng kapatid ko. So when the opportunity came, I really wanted to vote and
right.
cast.
I think the spirit of the discussion is what is our civic duty from this point on? And the first step, obviously, in terms of this civic duty, was to go out there and exercise that right and that duty as a citizen to actually sort of make your voice heard.
Nung day of the election, parang we've been monitoring elections for a long time already. And this was the first time we saw Filipinos, we saw voters na talagang adamant na boboto kami, we'll wait for the machines to be fixed or to be replaced. In previous elections, lagi naman ganun din yung problema. But a lot of voters, iniwan na lang yung balota sa mga electoral board. But surprisingly, this time around, given that we are in a pandemic, yung mga tao really waited. Para ikaw, Marius, 4 hours in time.
I mean, 4 hours is I've heard stories, people waiting 12. I've heard people standing in line after 7 p.m. until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., hoping that things would, get fixed and they'd be able to actually cast their vote. Yung isang interesting sa akin, Ina, is how people were so interested to support each other also coming into this election. During the campaign, regardless of which rally or gathering you attended, there was a spirit of really sort of helping each other push, more than just push your candidate, it was push you to be part of this exercise of making a choice, deciding on which platform appealed to you, and actually casting a vote that saw to it that the will of the people was heard.
I want to share something about that. This election period, ang dami ko na-observe. For me, I felt like I really belong. I'm just a young person, but I read online and then dami nagsasabi na we are a group of people supporting this candidate. candidate. And what helps that group of people, no, is if you name that group of people. Halimbawa, engineers, we're doctors, we are lawyers that are supporting this candidate. We're supporting this candidate. And then, mararamdaman ng mga tao na there is a sense of belongingness. No, aside from that, we are in a pandemic, and for 2 years, we've been practicing to communicate online. Ang dami nating gadgets, no, for online communication. And this helps spread information. No? So, for example, we're supporting our candidate in this area. So, why don't we gather together? No, kahit taga Cavite ka pa and Metro Manila yung pangyayari, sasama ka, lalo na kapag pakiramdam mo na, ay, makaka-contribute ako dyan. That's very different this election.
Right, and I think, most of us have looked at this strange period we're in, where we're sort of half in, half out, we're half digital, half in person. But we did sort of transition towards these huge gatherings during the campaign period, during voting day itself. For many of us, we sort of felt like this online life that we were living, I don't know, did it help us or did it hinder us? I mean, a lot of people felt like social interaction is sort of, face-to-face interaction is sort of, or interaction period is sort of, falling to the wayside. But you're also describing a phenomenon where it was easier to communicate with people who weren't necessarily part of your immediate circle, who may be, hundreds of kilometers away, but yet you found common ground to sort of come together because of how easily digital platforms bridge this divide, diba?
I think nakatulong na since we've been using online the platform, we've been meeting different people online. Siguro kung the pandemic didn't happen, we would be a bit wary when we meet people online. Stranger yan. Don't talk to strangers, diba? But now, nakita natin yung safety with meeting people online. And since we got this information, we'd be open to going in a place and meeting new people for the first time. Nagkataon na it happened during an election period. Kaya nakapag-support tayo ng all out for candidates we want to support.
All right. So we're talking about what goes on or what happens next after the elections and the new administration has obtained, we'll call it an overwhelming mandate from the people. We haven't seen a turnout this big.
This is the highest bound.
Yeah, this is record numbers,
yes,
diba?
Record numbers. Especially in a pandemic, record numbers.
What do you put that down to?
Siguro kasi yung 2 years na lahat tayo nakaharap lang sa mga monitor. But it was an opportune time for us. It was a timely opportunity for all of us to belong again to a community. And Filipinos are social animals. So, para ito na yung oportunidad natin na magsama-sama ulit and be part of something big, of a movement, of a community.
And really, again, that goes beyond candidates, that goes beyond platforms. We're talking about nation building as a whole, diba? Do you feel that? Do you feel that a sense of duty as a first-time voter? Yun ba yung naramdaman mo? You felt like, I have to fulfill a certain expectation that is expected of citizenry.
Yes, definitely. Grabe yung spirit of volunteerism. Siguro, yes, the pandemic, like what they mentioned, really affected it, but the spirit of volunteerism was there, the spirit of giving was there, and as what nationalism and what development really comes into is within us, the people. Kaya tayo nandito at doon papasok yung selflessness na ang rami kong nakitang talagang siguro nagbago.
What does that mean to you, nationalism?
The term that always comes into my mind is selflessness. Kasi voting in our democratic landscape was not forced, but it was something that we do voluntarily. And so these campaigns rin were brought voluntarily as well. And so, nakakatuwa, and it really fueled our passion and our patriotism in a lot of ways, especially with the elections. And I hope that continues after the elections, of course, because, again, it goes beyond the ballot box.
Observable ba yun, that attitudes have changed after the smoke is cleared post-election? Are we ready to put aside our differences and say, we're on Team Philippines, we're not necessarily on Team so-and-so or Team so-and-so? We're on Team Philippines.
I think maybe we can see it in the next few months. It's important to be reminded of why we support our candidates. Now, there's a reason for this. We want change. We want to be proud of our citizenship. As being a Filipino, it won't be an immediate transition, definitely, since the volunteerism, as Myra said, that is very large during the election period. It wouldn't be immediately change.
Ako nga pa, while listening to Marius, to Ina, and parang the word which comes to my mind is bayanihan.
Yeah.
Na parang ang tagal-tagal na rin natin hindi naririnig. Pero
Yeah.
seeing how we all voted, we all joined the campaigns, the massive rallies, parang bayanihan is alive again.
Right. Well, actually, I want to counter that and say, naririnig ko yan eh. I hear it's a word that's bandied around quite often, but I don't think it's quite had the same meaning as it has over this campaign and eventual election day and post-election. Post-election is really what the true test now. What should be top of the list of the incoming administration, and how patient, impatient should we be? I mean, there is this inevitable honeymoon period, where things sort of ease and we allow a little bit of leeway for things to start moving and gather steam, so to speak. But ultimately, the government works for us. We put it there. They are accountable to us. What should we be holding them accountable to? What should be top of the list of the incoming administration, and how long do you think is fair for us to expect things that we want to actually happen?
My personal opinion on this is to ensure adaptive and evolving pandemic response.
Yeah.
Kasi 2 years na tayo na nasa pandemic and yung virus, nag-evolve siya. I
Yeah.
guess our response to this should be adaptive as well. Sumasabay dapat tayo. Secondly, yung maganda, mag-focus rin tayo dun sa mga nasira o mga kailangan i-heal na heightened issues because of the pandemic. So baka napag-iiwan yun. So maybe yun yung first 2 issues that should be prioritized this 6 years.
Yeah, ako 3 things, no. Una is yun nga, managing the pandemic, moving on, and of course post-pandemic to make sure na hindi na siya maulit. My college life face-to-face was only 7 months, and I don't want that to happen for the future generations. And next, no, is the economy. Our debt is really rising. We have to make sure that GDP ratio is there, and as citizens, we need to make sure to be vigilant, and we need to make sure na accountable nga ang ating gobyerno. Pangatlo na hindi na pag-uusapan na personal advocacy ko is for the climate trend. We really want to push for sustainable development, and of course, the climate resilience that we very desperately need now. And so that's something that I hope our administration really does go ponder on.
I share that concern, and it's nice to see that the young vote actually was that was an important factor in the young vote. How long should we be waiting, Attorney, before we say, teka, ito yung napag-usapan natin na gagawin ng bagong administrasyon. The new administration is, like I said, sort of going to be held accountable for the things that the people who put them there want. What's a fair period to wait?
Siguro walang fair period, pero for the next 6 months, we should be patient, but at the same time vigilant. Let us remember that incoming administration will take over a budget na yung budget was prepared and implemented by the outgoing administration. So they will have their own budget by next year pa. So they will prepare for their budget for next year. So let us be patient, but let's also be vigilant and ask for their plans for the next 100 days. Kasi napaka-importante niyan to just control and just appease all people, all Filipinos, that the government has a plan and the government will have this program, especially we're still in the pandemic, that it will have plans for the economy, for jobless Filipinos. So the first 100 days is crucial, but let us be patient but vigilant as well.
But I think it's important for us to have a punch list, almost a checklist of what are these things that we're going to be focusing our attention on, and how are we going to step by step sort of start ticking the boxes of this list of things that we're going to be looking at. And it's a list that moves, that gets passed on from administration to administration. What do you think it is that worked or failed for certain administrations, that lessons that we can learn from? Also, given that we sort of have this renewed spirit of, like you said, bayanihan, and this time we mean it. What are the things you think that we can capitalize on coming into this new period of a new government? We're in this honeymoon period.
Sense of
Yeah.
citizenship.
Paano natin ma-maintain yun? How, or do you think it will stay, or is this, like we keep calling it, just a honeymoon period where everybody's just high on the experience of the campaign and of elections?
Sa akin, no, as Attorney mentioned, as we stay vigilant, siguro ang maganda yung communication channels na binibigay sa atin ng government. No, maganda na nakakakuha tayo ng correct and concise information from them, especially as these times are very unfamiliar to us.
Digitalization has just been so accelerated, and there's just so much information that you can get so quickly. There's no excuse for you not to have information available to you.
They should improve on communication channels for everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's not forget the significant portion of our population as well na hindi pa rin connected sa internet.
Okay,
May
that's true.
30% pa rin na Filipinos na wala access sa iba't ibang online platforms. So, the government should also focus on that sector of our population for them not to feel that they're left behind. But I agree with Ina na important talaga yung communication lines ng government. Kasi dyan naman una nagsisimula yung frustration, yung the lack of feeling that the government is not doing anything for the country. So, the government should focus on communication channels, online and offline.
Yeah, like town hall meetings and talagang consultation to stakeholders. So yun, napakahalaga ng civil society. And speaking of civil society, no, I'd like to talk about doon nga sa renewed nationalism or spark of nationalism na nakuha ng marami sa ating mga voters. I hope it sustains, because one of the biggest words that we've heard is tumindig, di ba? Hindi lang dapat tayo tumindig dahil eleksyon. Titindig dapat tayo dahil tayo ay Pinoy. So we have to stand up every time, every day, because we're Filipinos, and we always should have that vision to have that better Philippines, as we always would say.
This feeling that we all have now, is this unique to this election period, do you think? Or do we see this every 6 years?
Oh, that's an interesting point. I say that it's unique, no, because the way we engage with each other, the way we connect with each other is unique this elections because of the pandemic, our digitalization. But I believe that a lot of people become more politically engaged when election comes. No? Kasi dumadami yung balita. No? But the thing that's different with the 2022 elections is that our engagement and communication, connection is heightened.
You know, are we at an age where, like for example, I mean, Japan, medyo lumayo tayo. But Japan is an aging nation. Are we a young nation? Is a big slice of the voting demographic the young vote? And I think that's interesting that you know, so many people are involved, so many people want to have a voice, so many people actually want to, you know, make their opinions heard. Are we where we are now because, you know, one, we have a large slice of the voting population is of a young age. They're probably a little more digital savvy than older generations. You know, our parents may not be privy to the same information overload almost, where there's so much information out there, both relevant and irrelevant, both verified and unverified, that we all sort of soak in. I guess this connects to the idea of, you know, digitalization really accelerating, how digitalization has shaped really the attitude we have towards the election process, voting, and also moving forward, how accountable we can hold the incoming administration for. Madali kasing makipag-usap sa iba-ibang mga sektor. We can talk and compare notes very, very easily. Do you think that plays a role in why we're so engaged and so involved?
A big chunk of why a lot of Filipinos are engaged because of the young voter population.
Yeah.
Parang 50% of Filipino voters are from the age range of 18 to 40 years old.
Yeah.
So I still consider myself as bata pa.
Pasok pa naman.
Pasok pa. And just like what you mentioned, tech savvy, able to nuance between disinformation and correct information.
Really? Do you feel that?
Young people, I really believe. Kasi yung mga Gen Z, yung mga boomers, meron pa
We have the
mahirap
access. We have the access to information, but maybe we're not as discerning,
Yes.
or simple fact checks. Maybe that's what's lacking. I mean, maybe the younger generation being more tech savvy, it's easier for them to run checks. It's easier for them to sort of back check, you know, images, whether isang Google image check lang to, reverse search, and you can find the source of images, and it's easy to debunk certain things that many people take as gospel. If you saw it on Facebook, it must be true.
Yeah, that's
or if you
true.
saw it rather on social media, it must be true.
I'm hopeful dun sa young population natin na eventually, and just to add to what Ina said earlier, eto election natin is unique in the sense of the engagement
Yeah.
of many Filipinos. And I would like to believe na yung engagement, the energy, the spirit behind all of these engagements will be continued
Right.
even after the elections.
Right.
Kasi the young people have so much energy, spirit, and purpose na they would want to continue engaging with this government. Even though it's no longer an election period, probably other engagement, working with the government
Yeah.
or working with NGOs, for example, Marius.
Yeah, that's true. Talagang it's very, very crucial yung misinformation, no? Especially to those that can be victims of misinformation. Digital literacy is one of the things that we should look forward, especially to us that are privileged enough
Right.
to know what is true and what is not.
Is that a concern of your organization? I mean, do you guys, how much of that do you busy yourself with?
Oh, definitely. And I think one thing that is a problem as well is canceling out people who are victims. So we tend to forget na biktima sila eh. Hindi naman sila yung problema. We just really have to guide them and, educate them.
Hindi sila yung problema, then what is the problem? What are you referring to?
I think the echo chambers are one, di ba? Some are have closed echo chambers, and of course, the sphere of influence rin that revolves around their specific societies, no matter how gaano siya kalaki or gaano siya kaliit. I think that's a big thing that has to be tackled, di ba?
Anthropologists must be having a heyday at this point. I mean, you
Yeah.
must be like overflowing, with
Yeah.
information. And para
Exciting
siguro,
times.
you guys are constantly sort of comparing notes.
Yes, totoo yan. But totoo yung pagiging nasa echo chamber. At this, on the one hand, it helps. No? For example, I'm in an echo chamber and I hear this booming call for volunteerism, for example. But if I stay in that echo chamber, that's the problem.
But don't you think that's unique to the larger whole, or that's not unique to your echo chamber? Because there's this echoing call all over the entire Philippines.
Yes, that's true. There's a larger echoing call, but I believe echo chambers are a lot. No, there are
Okay.
echo chambers for one truth. There's an echo chamber for another truth.
Right.
And how would we know which one is correct?
Exactly.
So
it seems to be whichever one appeals to you, doon ka nakikinig, di ba?
Yeah.
tama. And our social media accounts, they helps us know to fix our feed to the things that we like, the
Yeah.
ones we like.
Yeah,
we've
absolutely.
reacted,
You
no?
hear what you want to hear to a certain extent, right?
On the one hand, it helps us because we get targeted ads that are for us. But on the other hand, when it comes to the information that should be fact-checked, you must be able to nuance.
Right. Well, I mean, that was important during the campaign period. It will remain to be an important practice moving forward in order for us to make progress as, like we said, Team Philippines. We need to continue to discern, and we need to continue to sort of weed through what is real, what is not, what is factual, what is not. How can we affect change, and how can we sort of move our agenda which benefits everybody forward? What's our big hope for the Philippines?
Sa simula kasi mahirap. It can be overwhelming. No, the call to know what's right and wrong in terms of information. But my personal suggestion to everyone who's listening is to get to know your advocacies, get to know the things that you like, and start from there. No, if you are into climate change, if you're into disaster risk, know about the facts, know about the theories about it. No? Start from the things that you like first, and then that's where you can practice knowing what's right and wrong, knowing the credible sources and the opinions lamang.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like what I'd always say, in terms of advocacy, your advocacy is your biggest hugot. At sana isa sa mga hugot natin, di lang bilang kabataan, is to really be advocates for the country, para sa development nga ng ating bansa. I think that's something that has to really be ingrained. And one of those challenges, like we were mentioning about earlier, which is echo chambers, is to step out of those echo chambers, to make sure that people are open-minded and are nationally conscious to an extent that needs will always be there, and it will always, be part of our lives. But our participation and how we react in becoming, very civil citizens is something that is going to push the Filipino people.
I love a good hang. I love a mahaba-habang usapan like this, But I mean, how do we take it beyond Puentuhan? I mean, Puentuhan is great. Usapan is great. How do we sort of turn discussion into action that actually, helps the country and helps us moving forward?
Ako, dalawa yan pa. One is, remember that there is a world outside of the online platforms.
Yeah.
So, don't forget about talking to your family and friends in the offline engagements. Kasi too much focus on the online world. So, di ba? Go offline. First. Second is know your barangay. If you want to start something on your own, start with your barangay. Kasi yun naman yung pinaka magiging effective ka at pinaka may pakikinggan ka in cloud. So, if ever young people would want to explore things to do, start with your own barangay. Kasi doon naman nagsisimula lahat.
Yeah. Lagi ko ito naririnig as business advice, pero for me, sobrang relevant siya bilang isang Pinoy. Lagi sinasabi sa startup community, di ba, or sa pagtayo ng businesses, number one is to start small. Number two is to fall in love with the problem, not with the solution. Okay. It's hard to provide a lot of solutions without knowing what the root of the problem is, diba? Even as students in our research and our thesis. And that is connected to attorney's point na dapat on the ground, or as we call grassroots, dapat. We have to start small in our simplest of communities. And going back, no, the digital space, social media is good as an instrument, but what will carry conversations is really the community. Ang hirap kasi kapag usapan pa lang, di na agad nagkakaroon ng isang dialogue. Dialogues are something that is very important na minsan hindi nga nagsisimula dun eh. So we have to start from being open-minded, from being there where they are, to really being in their shoes, and to understanding the people that we hope to influence and converse with.
Do you think we feel, I don't know if the discussion is we or the greater number of people out there? The question is, we're not in positions of power. Perhaps, well, you are certainly an influence within your circle, pero we're not lawmakers, we're not sitting in big, important political positions. Do you feel the average Filipino feels like they have a say? Do you feel like they have a feeling that they have some kind of power or influence over the way the country will be shaped?
I think it's gonna be hard to say if the Filipino people feels this, but what's important is we should remind them that our officials are here to serve the people. That's what they say.
Right, because I think to a certain extent, I feel like after we make a vote, and after your vote, that's how democracy works. The greatest number of votes reflects the greatest the will of the people, so to speak. And once the reins of power have been handed to whoever wins an election, everybody just sort of kicks back and says, relax. You're in charge. Do the work that needs to be done. But actually, it's us that needs to do the work. Do you think the average Filipino feels that they have the power to affect change, even if you're not in a position of power? Because parang the power of my vote is one of the most powerful things, because if we all vote together, the person we want to be leading us will lead. But after that, do we just hand the reins to whoever ends up being in charge of the country, or should we have a say in how things continue from this point?
Should have a say. Kailangan mapaalala natin sa Filipino people that we have a say, because these officials serve us.
Right.
When it comes to, for example, we can start by consuming information, consuming correct news. We can start with the news about our areas, our cities, our barangays, yung mga malapit sa atin, or we can consume news that we love, yung our advocacies, which are malapit sa ating puso.
Pero hindi ba tapos na yun? I mean, after the vote is done, do we have a say in how, because this administration or any administration is in power for the next 6 years, and in effect, the great majority, puts them into office. Do we have a say still in what decisions they will make? How do we continue to have a say?
Yeah, I think one reminder for the Filipino people is to know that the power is not within our local and national officials. The power is always within the Filipino people. That's the reason why we get to choose who we want to be in these positions. And so that's a reminder that we have to instill. And of course, again, going back, we mentioned that a lot did vote. Diba? We did a lot really did register.
The greatest number ever.
Greatest number ever.
Highest turnout
in the history,
ever.
Diba? Yes. But there's still this big percentage na hindi pa nakaboto, and siguro sila nga yung tipong nagsasabi na feeling nga nila na wala silang boses, which nagsisimula sa pagboboto at of course sa kanilang participation sa gobyerno.
Ako, I agree with Ina that Filipinos should be reminded that we have the power.
Yeah.
We have the power to hold our officials accountable. And just like what I said earlier, it starts in the barangay.
Yeah.
Parang lagi barangay. And you need to study. You need to get to know your community, your barangay officials, kahit barangay officials man lang. Kasi that's the first step for you to hold them accountable.
You can feel a little overwhelmed about national problems,
Yeah.
problems of the entire world. But really, if you start in your own backyard, so to speak, it becomes more of a slightly more manageable problem that you can sort of build on and move outwards from.
Dapat may momentum eh.
Okay.
So you start with your barangay, and if you're successful in your barangay, you move up to the next level.
Right,
Your
right,
LGU.
right.
So ano lang yan, it's gathering momentum.
Right, because it can be a little overwhelming to try and solve a nation's problems from from your backyard, so to
kasi
speak.
diba, we look at what the next administration will be planning, but we tend to forget na kahit sa barangay level may mga policies na yan na of course na ang goal ng nasa posisyon is para sa komunidad. And so bilang parte ng komunidad or bilang parte ng ating mga barangay, we have to make sure that we're part of that decision-making process. And that starts with reaching out, whether it's the one in power or us as citizens.
Obviously, it makes sense to sort of frame the discussion in terms of politics, in terms of post-election, but really not necessarily politics per se, but just sort of love for the country. How can we best be expressing that? And because we're on this high now of wanting to be involved and wanting to be and being very vocal about it, and we've got so many platforms to express that from the digital to actually on the ground. What are some of the ways that Pinoys can show a little love for the country?
Siguro simulan ka bilang pinakamatanda.
Sige, ako last.
Pinakamatanda sa mga guests.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, let's talk about that based on your experience.
Ako, lagi kong binimension be the change that you want to see.
Yeah.
Kahit na ganyan. If you really want to see change happen in the country, you start with yourself. So, you follow traffic laws. Coding ka, di wag ka lumabas. Huwag kang tago-tago pa sa MMDA. Pay taxes. So, do your simple duty as a citizen. And doon magsisimula naman lahat. So, be the change that you want to see.
For me, makinig tayo. Let's try our best to stay involved, be involved. Because if we feel that sense of belongingness, mas talagang mas pakiramdam natin na makakatulong tayo sa ating government. For example, we can also start with our interests. For example, for me, growing up when I was a kid, I really like colors. Kaya nung high school ako, naging amazed na ako sa mga batik, yung mga indigenous weaves, yung mga pamaypay na bright colors talaga. And then eventually, na inaaral ko ito na these are made by indigenous people, and that's how I found my way into political participation, diba? Kasi learning about the roots of my interests, and I think that's first step of people who feel that they are not yet as involved. It starts with the things that they like.
On the simplest of context, going back to what I said, you have to fall in love with the problem, not with the solution. And
What do you mean by that?
we want a lot of things to happen for our country, pero we have to know what are the problems that lie within our country. Of course, we can easily look at the sectors that need help, the disadvantaged sectors, particularly class C to E, yung mga nahihirapan, yung mga walang boses. And so, bilang mga kababayan na may boses, it's really up to us to reach out to them as citizens. And again, sa barangay pa lang, marami ka na makikita, regardless of whatever barangay that may be. As I speak on to the youth, one thing that I would tell them, aside from what they mentioned already, is to know what the problem is through reading the news, reading newspapers. I think reading is now such a lost art, which is one of the cons of digitalization. So we really have to look at our literature, read books, read the news. And that's how we can easily, and it's actually also a solution for combating misinformation.
But it's such a double-edged. Like you said, it's been a boon and a bane in that we're used to being spoon-fed. We don't want to turn pages. We don't want to read. We just want to sit there and digest information.
That's true.
But at the same time, there's never been a time when so much printed material, whether physical print and transforming that into digital formats, has been more accessible. any book that you're interested, or any text you're interested to find, is eventually searchable, and you can access those things. You just simply need to want to access those things and digest the information discerningly, rather than just sort of be spoon-fed information that may or may not be true, relevant, or useful to you or not.
Yeah, bukod nga sa available information na parami ng parami, meron pa nung kung paano natin makukonsumo ang information na ito. So aside from reading, if you're not a fan of reading, you can watch, you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to the radio. Diba?
So they're so late to the party of podcasts. I've only just begun. It's never too late to sort of discover new avenues to soak in information. I don't know why it never appealed to me in previous years, but this year, or maybe late last year, parang okay din pala talaga ang I mean, there are so many ways of ingesting information to just enrich any discussion.
Ako, ang ganda nung discipline na trigger ng mga fandoms, Pao.
Yeah.
Parang, di ba sinasabi mga ina, kailangan mag-aaral. Ang mga fandoms ang sobrang aral kapag gusto nila yung kanilang banda. So sana ganun din yung interest and trigger natin Parang kailangan aralin
Well, I certainly feel that nandun tayo during this election period. I mean, there's never been, in my memory anyway, an election period, a campaign period, where there was so much discussion, so much back and forth, so much, both in a positive and negative way.
Parang fandom tayo ng Pilipinas.
Yeah.
Fandom Ano kayang tawag sa atin? Filipinos, syempre.
True. All right, so what should be our mindset as a people as we wait for the midterm election in 3 years? And of course, the next presidential. Kakaumpisa pa lang. I mean, but we need to sort of look forward. Fast forward 6 years from now. I was surprised at how fast 6 years have passed for the outgoing administration, and it will go by in the blink of an eye for the incoming administration. What do you think our mindset should be as a people? What are some of the carryovers maybe from the outgoing, our attitudes regarding the outgoing administration, and sort of what should we be bringing into this new administration, or maybe changing from the previous, our mindset based on the previous administration?
Siguro ako, in the next 3 years, let us hold accountable our elected officials.
Okay.
Kasi the past campaign period, we heard them, we watched them with all of their campaign promises. So the next 3 years is our chance to hold them accountable. Maningil tayo sa kanila. Ito sinabi mo ng campaign period. So what has happened to that campaign promise? So sana, the next 3 years, bantay pangako naman ang gawin natin.
Yeah, I agree.
Tama yun, no? Sa bantay pangako. I think mas kailangan palalimin pa natin lalo kasi ngayon na dahil mas madali na natin silang bantayan, di ba? Marami ng mga spaces where they can tell us what they have been doing and what they plan to do. No, mas madali na sa atin din magbantay pangako.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, for more Filipinos to become active citizens, and that's how we can step outside of our echo chamber to look at their promises and compare that to what they're actually doing, and we become vigilant on what they do, and we aim to give our say when it comes to the things that they're doing, not just in the national landscape, but also in the local, like what was mentioned in this discussion already.
I don't know if it's a correct, observation on my part, but because we keep saying we seem to be on this high of involvement, of being so engaged, and we've observed it in previous elections. Some of us say, "De, pero iba to. This time is different. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't." I'll leave it to the experts to actually eventually get to the bottom of that. But what do you think it is in previous? Because I think it's fair for us to say that in previous election cycles, there is that same sort of sense of high, but there's also that sense of forgetting what it is or what we felt during those election highs, and a sense of involvement that generally sort of fades. Medyo, okay, we all return to our own lives, we all return to the little problems that we tend to focus on, and we're hoping that what we're feeling now is something that will carry on for the midterms, for 3 years, for the next 6 years. What do you think it is ang iba from previous election cycles?
I think kaya may high kasi nagkaroon ng longing for it for a long time. For example, when the community pantry boosted, no? Last year was it. No, ang daming tumangkilik dito from different parts of the Philippines, even abroad. No, may nakita rin ako na abroad. And ang daming nag-volunteer for it. And then now no, sa elections ngayon, nakakalabas na siguro yung mga tao, especially nung campaign period, maraming nakakalabas. So nagkaroon ng great longing for it. So kung ipagpapatuloy natin yung volunteerism
Great longing for
volunteerism and engagement, meeting fellow Filipinos, no. If we continue this, no, for throughout the year, hindi na magkakaroon ng high kasi patuloy na lang siya. No, hindi na lang siya magiging booming event. No?
Okay. Let's talk personal agendas. I like Maris's thought. You and I are on the same wavelength when we talk about our concerns for the environment, for sustainability, climate. On your personal checklist or punch list, what will be your focus in terms of what you can be doing on a personal basis? And let's face it, you're in a position of influence yourself in your organization. And how will you move your agenda forward?
Oh yeah. So I think one thing that my fellow youth should do is always align ourselves when it comes to the betterment of our communities. I think that's why I'm such a big fan of selflessness or servant leadership. I think on my end, I'm a graduating student, and so I'll now, be in the realm of
moving
the
out to the
job
world.
search.
Yeah,
Yes,
moving
being
out
in
to
the
the
real
world.
world, being a official taxpayer per se, and all that. So. Yeah.
We're laughing.
Yeah. So it's
now you'll feel our pain. Yes. But yeah, it's part and parcel of being a big boy, of really joining, like you said, sort of taking your place and shouldering the responsibilities that come with not just making change, but really being part of that machinery that does allow us to affect change. But sorry to interrupt your thought. Go ahead.
It's okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm diving into a new ecosystem. Of course, I'll have added responsibilities. Again, like what was mentioned, being a taxpayer, and I think mas mararamdaman mo yung pagka-Pinoy. I think a personal advocacy of mine is to not leave the country. I mean, I know that some see it as a joke, some see it as an option, but I know that, in theory, may pros and cons naman ng pag-migrate, you also help the country. But for me personally, I think staying definitely helps to spark the patriotism that is present, and to make sure that you still participate and you always try to be involved, and regardless of whatever happens, regardless of who we voted for and not. Again, we shouldn't vote for I hope that people didn't vote particularly because of a candidate. We should vote for a bigger cause. On my end, a vote for a chance for better good governance. And so that's something that we should always keep in mind as we are given these platforms and spaces to contribute into development and for our communities.
What about you? What are your personal advocacies that you're sort of going to be focusing on coming into this new 6-year stretch?
I'd like to continue on learning about culture. No, as an anthropologist, this is what we really focus on, cultural anthropology. I started in college. I was already learning about child rearing. I have to learn about how children learn child rearing activities. I'm also an advocate of indigenous people's rights, and these are things and issues that I like to be involved in.
Okay. What about you, attorney? I mean, considering the sheer number of people who took part in the elections, that's a big part of what your organization is really about, is voter education, voting, voter education, and that sort of thing. High five na ba yan? Our work here is done. Ang daming bumoto. Effective tayo.
Sana pwede.
Ano pa ba ang, maybe on your personal agenda or personal list of things that you want to sort of put forward?
Here, my personal mission, my life mission actually, is to encourage young people to take part in politics, and that starts in the barangay, yung sangguniang kabataan. There's a big, massive opening for young people to take part in politics. So that's my mission, to encourage people like Marius to run in the sangguniang kabataan elections, which we will have this December.
Yeah.
So Marius, alam mo na.
We'll see.
Mag-uusap daw kayo ni attorney after this. Mahaba-habang usapan daw kayo.
Ang thesis ko nga actually is around the Sangguniang Kabataan.
Okay.
There are a lot of policies, a lot of amendments ever since the SK Reform Act. As someone that is really involved in making sure that youth participation continues to be active through civic education, and of course on facing the issues that not only the Philippines but the world needs to tackle on, which is inequality, of course, race, sustainability, again, climate change, as what we mentioned. I think we have a good framework in the Sustainable Development Goals that enables us to be anchored kung ano yung kailangan natin. I think that personal advocacy of mine and together with my organization continues, of course, in a more amplified note.
Okay. One thing that was interesting to me, I want to ask Ina about it, was what you're talking about, the idea of not migrating, not leaving, staying within the Philippines. What seems to be the attitude now of Filipinos? Are we looking to get out and look for greener pastures, or are we seeing, there's always been this great diaspora of Filipinos moving towards, wherever you go in the world, there's a huge Filipino community. Do you think people are coming back because, for whatever reason, they want to be more involved in shaping the Philippines?
Mas mahaba-habang usapan.
Mas mahaba-habang usapan. But is there a trend for people coming back, not leaving as much, or less people leaving, and possibly even people coming back?
Actually, nakakatuwa nga kasi yung the joke na alis na lang tayong Pilipinas, yung fear na kung anong mangyayari in the next 6 years. Naririnig ko yan from people my age, from the youth, and from adults. Natatakot sila para sa anak nila.
Is it fear? Is it frustration? Is it just fast forward na lang? Let's just skip to the good part, so to speak, right? Yeah. It's so hard to shape a nation. Let's just go somewhere where things are already shaped. Is that the attitude, or is there, like you said, is there a certain sense of fear about what the future holds, or is it just a frustration? Let's just go somewhere where it's already done.
I think it roots from fear and frustration, but the good thing is, there's a balance of the number of people I've met na gustong umalis and gustong manatili. Gusto nila makita at maging bahagi din sa pagbabago. And hopefully for the people who do plan on leaving, I think meron silang hawak na pagka-Pilipino So the people would be meeting them, Pinoy ka, so kumusta sa inyo? And I know that this will allow them to think more about the country.
Is that an attitude you think that we see more with the younger generation, or is it a change in mindset of boomers upward?
It's really hard to say because I hear it from both the young ones and the adults who are afraid of their children's future. So maybe that's what we can say about it.
Nararamdaman mo ba yan in your sphere, in your circle?
Ako mas parang iba sa Pilipinas Iba yung community, iba yung family support compared to other countries. Kaya I see also a significant portion of my world na would choose to stay in the Philippines because of the community, because of the family support, raising the family. Ako pagtingin ko dyan, it's 50-50. Pero sana I would encourage young people, buti na lang Marius, who would choose to stay in the Philippines to stay in the country and take part in the further development of the country.
All right. Well, it's been a super discussion, and we need to round it off at some point. It could literally go on forever. But let's hear from each and every one of you. Maybe just your thoughts in parting. What sort of thoughts, ideas do you want to leave people who are watching with?
Something I want to reiterate what I mentioned earlier. Continue to be engaged, continue to be involved. Whether this is because of something that is near to you, physically near to you, your barangay, your city, or near to your heart, your advocacies, the issues that you really enjoy supporting. So continue to be involved.
Lagi kong sinasabi, it's one of my favorite quotes, is to protect your courage. Always keep that courage and faith going. And for the youth, tayong kabataan, we're tired of waiting for the world to change. Today, the world is waiting for us to change it. And I hope this elections has helped us na mamulat. Lagi nga sinasabi, kapag namulat, di na mapipikit. And I hope that our participation continues and we reach out to those that haven't participated yet.
Yeah, I think that's really been the essence of what we've been discussing here. Is there's this huge, never before seen level of engagement that we want to, like you said, our eyes have been open to it, and we never want to sort of turn back towards indifference, towards not being involved. And everybody should just have a say and really sort of be part of the change we want to be.
Ako, regardless of the candidate that you supported in the elections, continue believing in being a Filipino.
Yeah.
Kasi being a Filipino, I think it's one of the greatest feelings in the world.
Yeah.
Parang iba ang Pilipinas talaga, iba yung community, iba yung sense of belongingness. But for us, to really continue being Filipino, we need to engage more. We need to study more.
Yeah.
We live in a world na it's instant gratification, instant noodles, but we need to just remember that change takes time. We can't see change overnight. So we need to be patient, but just like what I mentioned earlier, we need to stay as vigilant as well.
Yes.
Right. Okay, excellent discussion. I love it, and I'm sure we'll continue to chat more off cam, so to speak. But I just want to say thank you so much to Attorney Ona, Ina, of course, and Myros for joining our Speakeasy and for participating in Beyond the Ballot, a mahaba-habang usapan on our civic duty after the elections. This roundtable has been brought to you by CNN Philippines in partnership with San Mig Light. Thank you for watching.